All right. Today we are starting off breaking down the art of war. So, I'm planning on using the translation I can speak. Translation by Lionel Giles because that's the one that I have. And if you're wondering where you find that, it is at least on Audible. But the idea should still come across most of the time if it was translated correctly. I've listened to a few different translations every so often, so I'm reasonably certain that they're all similar enough. Okay, great. So, to start off, we're going to start breaking down the first portion of laying plans. So, when it starts off, it says laying plans is of vital importance to the state or vital importance of the state. Okay. Now, this might seem obvious when I say it, but I've noticed that a lot of people don't do the obvious thing. There's a good chance that common sense is now dead. So, it might be common knowledge, but I don't think there's anything common about sense these days. Now, that just might be me, and I might surround myself with idiots every so often. But to start off, that portion is saying that for your goals, right? So the state is the thing that heads the entire, it is the country that you're fighting for, right? So that would probably fall along the ideas of your future, that which you hold dear. So in my case, it would be family, people around you, stuff like that, right? So laying plans is vital importance, of vital importance to the state. Great. So that means that when you're doing anything to try to further your goals, you're going to want a plan. Okay, great. That sounds very obvious, at least to me. I've read this book several times, so it might not be obvious that at the point at which you can use this, right? So a lot of people think, oh, if I'm trying something big in my life, I should have a plan for that. And the answer is, well, yes. But if you really want to, you could also start setting in plans for your day, right? So a lot of people call those schedules, which is fair. But you got to make sure that you plan your schedule and that your schedule aligns with, the things that you want to do. Now, if you're making plans, here are 5 factors that are constant. It says something along the lines of like 5 factors that are constant to describe the conditions. Okay, so there's at least 5 things that you should keep track of that make it so that your plan will be better. Okay, great. Those are the martial law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method and discipline. Okay, let's start breaking those down. We start with the moral law. Okay? The moral law causes the people to be in complete alignment with their ruler. Okay, so in this analogy, the state has someone who runs it. Okay, great. Now, the runner of the state is the direction that you want your stuff to go. So, that means that if the moral law is referring to the people, the the workforce, the people around you, maybe your neighbors, stuff like that. Okay. This makes it so that those people are in complete alignment with their ruler. Great. So to finish breaking this up in the analogy, if you're to translate this, it means the moral law, if you're in alignment with the moral law, then it makes it so that the people around you are in complete accordance with your objective. Right? So, if your goal is to get an education, and your friends want to help you get an education, then you are in alignment with the moral law. Because the people around you want to help, are in alignment with the goal. Great. Heaven. Now, in the book, they say that heaven is night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons. So that one's reasonably simple, right? When you're calculating your plans, when you're making your plans, you want it so that you put into consideration the times, when you're doing stuff. If the season matters, then you want to, so let's say you're doing an outside thing, right? Hey, everybody, let's go play at the park, and it's winter time. You're going to want to, make sure that you bring winter stuff to play at the park during winter and not summer. Great. That is the law of heaven. Now, the law of earth is distances, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. Now, what this is referring to is how far you would have to move stuff, right? So, where? Danger and security is reasonably understandable. It's what could go wrong and what do we need to do to make sure that it goes right. Open ground and narrow passes is, I like to think of it, because there's a few different ways you can interpret that one. I like to think of it as options versus areas in which we need to make that decision, right? So if you're stuck with one or two decisions, you're in a narrow pass. You have very few options. And if you have a ridiculous amount of decisions, then you're on open ground. You can pretty much go anywhere you want. Great. And the chances of life and death. Now, most people's plans won't actually, have the problem where they'll face life and death. If you are facing a problem in which you face life and death, definitely take that into consideration. But for those who don't face problems of life and death, what you want to do is you want to change it to success and failure, right? What is your failure, what happens during failure, and what is your success and what happens during success, right? So what's your win condition and what's your lose condition? Great. And how drastically terrible is said lose condition, and how good can the win condition be? So that is the law of earth. Great. Now, the commander. The commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, security, courage, benevolence, and strictness. Now, the commander is the person who executes the plan. Okay? So the more that you try to be wise, secure, face the problems and don't let the problems scare you, treat the people around you with a fair degree of courtesy, benevolence, and make sure that you actually stick to the plan, which is strictness. As long as you have that, the more that you have that, the more you're in alignment with the commander. method and discipline. The mastering of its army and its subdivisions. The graduation of rank among the officers, the maintenance of roads which supplies may reach the army, and the control of military expenditure. Great. So that's method and discipline. Basically what this one is making sure that you give ample reward and ample punishment for reward for things that do good and punishment for things that do bad. Carrot and stick general idea. It also means that you maintain the things that are supporting you. Let's say that your goal is to work out and to, hey, I want to be aesthetically pleasing and ripped. Okay, great. So one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reward yourself when you actually go to the gym. Great. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have some sort of kickback and, stick option for when you don't go to the gym when you need to go to the gym. Great. The last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the thing that is doing the work, your body, is getting the resources that it needs. So that would be your diet. So you make sure that you get enough diet and enough sleep. That would be the idea of converting that into a project, okay, into a plan for modern day purposes. So these are the 5 factors to consider. These are the 5 constant factors to consider when laying plans. To review, we have laying plans is highly important to succeed at your long-term goals and short-term goals. Basically, to succeed at your goals, you need plans. Great. When making plans, you have 5 factors to consider. You have the moral law. You want the people around you to be in alignment with the thing that you want. Okay, so if you're trying to do drugs for some reason and you live at your parents' house, you're in the wrong place to be, in alignment with the moral law, because your parents probably don't want you to do drugs. Great. So then you wouldn't be in alignment with the moral law. And if you're at school and your teachers do want you to learn things and you want to learn things, you are in alignment with the moral law. Okay? Heaven. Night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons. You want to make sure that when you plan stuff, you consider when it is and when it needs to be, how long it needs to be, how long you're willing to do stuff, things like that. Earth. Distances, dangers, whatnot. So you want to make sure that you've considered what is going to make you fail and you've considered what you need to succeed. And you know the areas. Okay, so back to the learning analogy. You know that you're really bad at math and you're really good at literature. So you don't want to spend all of your time doing literature, and you want to make sure that you solve the math stuff and you make sure that you get that down so that you don't fail the exam. Okay, the commander. So the commander stands for virtues, wisdom, encouragement, and blah, blah, blah. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're executing the plan, right, you are making sure that you are being smart about it, you're making wise decisions, you are making sure that you're not making you're not making choices that could really crumble and shake up the plan. You are not, getting scared of the hard decisions that you do need to make, that you're, not treating everyone around you like a tyrant, but you also need to make sure that things stick to the plan, right? So if you're given the option to spend time with your family and to work on your homework, you can probably split it up where you spend some time with your family and a good chunk of time on your homework, right? And the more the deadline comes up, which is you considering heaven, which is times, the heaven law, which is times, the closer that comes up, the more time that you spend working on your homework and not necessarily, watching movies with your family when the option arrives. As nice as it is to watch movies with your family, if you if you're not prepared for your test and whatnot, and your goal is to succeed at this, at this course, you're going to want to make sure that you spend the adequate time necessary to do the things that the course needs. Great. Method and discipline. So it's the marshaling of the army, and its proper subdivisions, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so basically, you're making sure that you are rewarding good behavior, not rewarding and or having some sort of punishment for bad behavior, push-ups, you could do push-ups, you could have, screen time removal, XYZ. So you're not rewarding bad behavior, and you're making sure that you're getting the resources that you need. So that means if you're totally wiped and can't do anything, you probably have been pushing yourself too hard without the right resources. So you need to sit back and realize what you're missing, make sure that you adjust your setup so that you can get the things that you're missing, and then you need to make sure that you are well enough to continue with the plan, whatever that means for you. But you need to make sure that you're getting the adequate resources. You also need to make sure that you are properly giving rewards. Okay? So if you're I did 15 minutes of studying, I'm going to play video games for 3 hours. Probably not a proper reward. That's you not being wise. So you're not following one of the laws. It's also probably you not being strict, so that's not following the law of the commander. The setup that you want to do would probably be something more like, I did an hour of studying, I can do 15 minutes of video games. Or 45 minutes of studying and 15 minutes of video games also works reasonably well. The last piece is, I've done a ridiculous amount of studying this week, and, my family wants to watch a movie, and that'll take 2.5 hours, and I don't have a ridiculous amount of time, but I'm somewhat confident in my stuff, and I think I can spend this 2.5 hours with my family. Go for it. Totally fine. As long as it's following the ideas of the methods, right? So if it's not a dumb move, you can probably do it as long as you are adequately rewarding yourself for work done. That is the overview of the first third of laying plans. So